OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 386. Capes and Conundrums. Brutality's response is to withdraw a pair of modified gauntlets that settle around his hands and then extend along the edge of his wings. Then they ignite to reveal themselves to be a combination of plasma blade and hull cutter designed for the wing arm physiology of the Sonier. Alice shifts forward and brings down one of the massive fire discs like an axe, and Brutality catches it on the edge of his plasma blade. A screaming, spitting sound emerges where the axiom technique meets technology, and the tools of both combatants go to war as much as the people involved. The second disc is slammed at him, and he catches it as well on the second weapon. It becomes a contest of sheer, brute strength, but not for long. Brutality is taller than Alice, and she brings her head back to slam it forward. Then the fire surrounding her head is blasted backwards in a solid stream as the flames behind her are snuffed out and the floor is beginning to crack. There is no sound to be heard. What Brutality is screaming eclipses sound and into silence. It's contained. The outer edge of the sonic attack is a counterwave at just the right frequency to contain the spread of sheer force. She loses her footing and tumbles backwards, bouncing off the ground as her armor is further shredded, and she works hard to just try and protect herself from the sheer unrelenting assault. Then it's over, and she rises before Brutality can even speak. At the very end, there is an echo of a scream as the massive sonic wave collapses. "Surrender, Alice. I will not allow you to bring further harm to this world or its people. And even if you best me, there's an outright line of others just waiting to tear you down." Brutality explains as he opens his wings wide to gesture to his family. All prepared to do battle. All slowly starting to move out and cut off escape routes. "Ha! Aha! I'd rather see your blackened husk collapse." She blasts forwards as the fire changes, becoming hungry, becoming dangerous and eating through what it should not. There is a concussive blast, and she has to dodge an anti-material round from Harold, and then diverts entirely to avoid the swing of a sword that screams danger to her every sense and instinct. The dodge is desperate, and he pushes her so hard she's forced to give up her solid footing to avoid being bisected. She rolls, tumbles, and before she can rise, the insanely dangerous sword is right in her face. "That was warfire," Harold states. "You're willing to use warfire in a populated city? And for what?" Brutality gathers axiom around his hands and claps them together hard, sending out a specialized disruption wave that snuffs out the flames. "That's enough, Harold. I can handle warfire," Brutality states, and Harold looks back, looks towards Alice, and then towards the oncoming police cruisers. After another moment, he sheathes the sword and nods. He pointedly does not place the sword back into an expanded pocket where it was previously. It's strapped to his side now, just ready to be drawn, just in case. "Very well. You handle this wretch. I will speak to the police and buy you time to question her, but if she should fell any one of you, even non-lethally, she will not survive it. And I would hope she wouldn't. Make no mistake, I do prefer to take people in alive, but I do not have a psychological disorder about it." Brutality assures him, and Harold nods before sparing Alice one final glare. He steps away as Brutality returns to stand in front of her. "What in any God's name made you think this was a good idea? And do forgive me if I am skeptical." "I don't answer to the likes of—" She begins, and Harold rushbacks even as another shot rings out. Her belt tries to teleport her away, but Brutality is right there, and she is slammed into the cave floor with her face in the grip of his claws, and the evacuation technique being effortlessly disrupted. "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Jameson, but please the police?" Brutality says in a genial tone. He gives Alice one last glare before turning again. "Certainly the protective type. I'm glad that my children and him get along so well." Some paces away, Harold holds up his hands to show they are empty as he approaches the rapidly descending police cruiser, which is just the first of a small army of vehicles. He has a friendly smile on his face as they descend. "You there! Identify yourself!" they demand over the speakers. "Harold Armory Jameson of the Undaunted Special Forces Intelligence Division." He calls out clearly and strongly as the vehicle descends to land in front of him. There is a pause. "These files state you're currently attached to the Inevitable as a security consultant." They're in orbit. Gotham was attacked by a lava serpent, and with the aid of a family of bounty hunters, I have tracked one of the primary instigators to this city. On approaching her known address to speak with her, she went on the attack and attempted to kill the team before escaping. We tracked her to a nearby building she had trapped and modified, and when those modifications failed, she attempted to retreat. I destroyed her escape vessel, and her response is once again attempted murder. However, she's proven herself capable of using epoch warfare, which is obscenely dangerous. I am unfamiliar with the epoch, the Tret woman states. Their traditional warfare is designed to get around the absurd resistances the epoch have to fire so that they can use their traditional breath weapons against each other in both warfare and duels with lethal force. In other words, it's a thermal attack that ignores thermal resistances, meaning the local buildings, peoples, and protections are useless. And she's just throwing that out? She was. We put a quick stop to it. I need some kind of official report. I'm not certain how the Undaunted do these things, but I have a body cam on and a copy of the communications between myself and the local team. A fair amount of it is friendly banter, as I am on good terms with them socially, but nothing truly private is in there. That will do nicely, she says. A word of warning, one of the bounty hunters is an elective mute, so the communications are responses to sign language or incredibly expressive body language where you find the gaps. I see. Communication on that end won't be difficult. So long as she is willing to cooperate, we have many officers who understand sign language. Now, before we continue any further, I need to inquire as to what the hell you hit the alleged escape vessel with. That weapon was heard over the entire city, and numerous citizens are reporting minor injuries due to being knocked out of the sky by the sheer sound of it. Oh, that was a chemically propelled kinetic weapon, registered as a pop gun. I was using several enhancement techniques on both the weapon and ammunition and poured in as much power as I could without inducing a null collapse. The end result was most impressive, but destroyed the weapon. The sheer thermal energy it imparted to the barrel of the gun destroyed it. Pop gun? It was created on the field by undaunted soldiers on loose leash protocols, designed to be a man-portable anti-megafauna weapon. For those times, bounty hunting involves giant monsters getting far too close to a city. I'm not sure using it on a ship is appropriate. One of its main inspirations was an anti-material rifle, so it's entirely appropriate. Basically anything smaller than this vehicle here, Harold explains before gently tapping a knuckle against the police cruiser, isn't even to be considered as a target for the weapon. Anti-material rifle, exactly as the name suggests, a rifle that punches clean through material barriers and equipment. As an added bonus, the sheer power of the weapon also gives it a truly impressive range. Okay, fine. And the name of the woman who's apparently the cause of all this? Alice Thanquil, but we have evidence tying her to 5 other identities. Do you now? Scene change. Alice Thanquil. I want my lawyer, she states, and you'll get one. I just want to get some questions out of the way first. Not without a lawyer, one who's on my side, she replies to the officer. This sort of situation is more banal and annoying, not dangerous. The thing so many mercenaries that take the dark market contracts get wrong is taking it personally when you lose. And you will eventually lose. No one wins forever. Just keep things to yourself, say as little as possible, and sleep through things. You also generally need a fair amount of sleep and recovery if you've gotten into a situation where something as simple as police can get their hands on you. They're looking for anything admissible by court, and muttering in your sleep is only admissible in the kind of places where a dark market contract is also government work. And if you're getting sacrificed in one of those places, then it doesn't matter what you do or say, you're guilty and need an evac. But this is a touristy hotspot, as financially as it is, literally. Please, it's very simple. You are not a Scathach citizen. Just what are you doing here? Lawyer, please. I do not know local law. I do not know what you are and are not allowed to force out of me. So please send me the lawyer, she says. Just one last question before I let her in. No, Alice states. Is that the answer to the question or refusing the question? I want my lawyer. Alice repeats herself from earlier. and the officer sighs before standing up. Very well then, the officer says, standing up and heading to the door. The short figure of an Anglo-man comes in. There is a clear white light pouring off his lantern as he glares up at the officer. Why was I not brought to my client sooner? Ma'am, did they interrogate you? Did you say anything to the scene change, ma'am? I said I wanted a lawyer and that I was not overly familiar with Scathach law. Alice states, and the lawyer nods. Good, I am Sean Darkwater, attorney at law, of Tiers, Gnarl, and Ventus Law Firm. I have been assigned to your case. Now we need to talk, so you, ma'am, will be shutting off the recording devices, activating the sound bafflers, and vacating the observation room post-haste. Sean orders, and Alice can barely resist the urge to smirk at the deeper voice coming from the childlike physique of the Anglo-man. A pleasure to meet you. I am Alice Thanquil. Hopefully this can just be a decent day's work for you and a story for me. Indeed, now let's get to work and... Close that door, officer, Sean orders the officer. Scene change. Brutality in the family. Working with the police on the scene was often annoying. They have many different rules they not only have to follow but enforce. Thankfully, a lot of their procedures preserve evidence. And if you're willing to stay outside of the preserved areas and communicate, you can avoid a lot of issues. The real issue is that a lot of people see police work as reliable pay while being able to be Miss Betsy Badass. Then the realization comes that it's not an easy path to being a legal thug and either become corrupt or supremely disinterested. In general, 1 officer in 3 took things completely seriously. A job is a job is a job. 1 in 10 is truly dedicated without being some stupid punk. The rest? Yeesh. Drac grabs at the wrist of the idiot woman who knows nothing about cybersecurity or hacking. That slot is clearly damaged. Give me a moment, Drac states as he uses a simple nail to bend the metal frame around the slot back into place. Data chip, please. It's handed to him, and he plugs it into the computer. There, see? Whatever, we just need to let it run and... She says, turning on the computer, and it goes instantly to a password screen. Hang on, Drac says as he turns off the computer again. Let's do this completely clean. This is basic copy software, correct? Yes. Good, now press down the control and alternate key simultaneously, he says as he turns the computer back on. It goes to the password screen and Drac sighs. Either do things right or step to the side, please, Drac states. I did what you told me. You stopped pressing down on the keys, Drac states. You should have said hold instead. You know nothing about computers, do you? He asks her. I can use them just fine. I'm talking in the software and hardware maintenance sort of deal, he says. Press and hold down the control and alternate keys as I reset the system to force the computer into its basic input-output system. From there, we can copy what's on the hard drive and do several other things. Like this. There we go, Drac states just as the door is suddenly opened, and he jumps at the sound even as Brutality places a large number of sound dampeners down next to the door. I think one's still active. Most of them are. They look like they're going to send out a signal to multiple places, and we've only found 1 receiver so far. Brutality states, how's the hacking coming? We're in the copy everything down before I start breaking things apart stage. Attaboy. OOCS into a wider galaxy, Part 387. Capes and Conundrums. Is this someone with proper authority over Harold Armory Jameson? Admiral Hanala's eyebrows go up as that is the first thing that greets him as he answers the call. Yes, as would any captain to a ship he's on and several other ranks. And what has he done to deserve this level of desperation in your voice? Admiral Hanala asks. He used a battleship-grade weapon within city limits. And was it an actual battleship-scale weapon or an Axiom-enhanced man-portable one? That's what you're asking? From my understanding of him, I would believe it if you told me he tore the guns out of a dedicated warship and manually operated it while on foot. But I believe I would have heard of it if he had thought it necessary to escalate to such an extent. He enhanced a weapon he calls a pop gun until it was capable of shattering a heavily armed and armored starship in a single shot. That does line with what I am aware of when it comes to Mr. Jameson. Admiral Heinala states blandly. And you don't see anything wrong with that? Ma'am, he's a soldier in the military. This is a military government. He not only fits in, but is an excellent example to aspire to, Admiral Heinala states before pausing. Unless he's been insubordinate or overly destructive. Has he harmed civilians? No. Has he threatened you or your girls? Incidentally, who is calling? I am Chief Lemire, officer in charge of the Cave Ward police forces for the southeastern city. Ah, he has been cooperative, I hope. Yes, but he's severely disturbed several officers and has taken what appears to be a perverse joy in the act. And how has he done these things? When we requested his presence in the station for a quick question and answer session, he was asked to disarm, as is routine, and describe all axiom effects currently in effect on their person. He then proceeded to surrender more weapons than we can physically hold. He then proceeded to explain the more unusual axiom effects on him and the ones on his equipment or caused by it. It took over an hour for what he claims was an extremely abbreviated listing without proper context. I see. Then when we got to what should be the simple subject of his age and species, he revealed he's a flash-grown clone who has undergone the skitterway method of halting accelerated aging, revealed that he has been augmented in a spiritual method and is apparently a flash evolution hearkening to times when humanity will have a primal. Oh, we then abandoned speaking to him entirely at that point and requested information from your organization. What we got did not improve matters. Considering that he's actually been completely honest according to your description, I imagine it wouldn't. You're confirming this insanity? I am. Harold is one of our more exciting individuals, and he appears to actively looking for ways to make his existence more confusing and varied. Oh no. So the report that he has billions of siblings is not an absurd typo? I'm afraid not. Harold is one of the many individuals mass cloned from Herbert Jameson, his elder brother and original gene donor. Although donor is a heavy word as his genetic profile was stolen, copied, and bioprinted in such mass quantities that Herbert Jameson is one of the largest human demographics in existence. And what makes Harold unique among them is, Harold is the most physically developed of the Herbert Jameson continuum, artificially aged to adulthood, while the original, Herbert Jameson himself, has been de-aged via healing comas to an early pubescent state. Please tell me we're dealing with someone who is mentally an adult as well. He has a full memory download from the original, placing his maturity level in his early 30s. He's a full adult and has frequent chats with psychological counselors to ensure he remains good and stable. We're aware of just how dangerous super soldiers are, and one whose hobby is becoming an even deadlier super soldier is one we're paying a lot of attention to, Admiral Heinala explains. Right. Okay, one final thing. Yes, he claims to have not only multiple children on the way, but a child called the Astral Forest. That is an example of him not being serious, I think. You think? He is partially responsible for its creation, so in some jurisdictions he has a claim of parenthood over it. There is a thumping sound on the other side of the call. Goddess help me! This is absurd! It can be. Is there anything else you require? Look, utterly bizarre history or not, this man fired a weapon that was so powerful, it ignited the concrete he was standing on when it went off. We have to do something. Such as, I need the specifications of what he used. What he surrendered to us is a burnt-out and melted wreck of hardware that was utterly destroyed by the single shot he took with it. I also need his psychological profile. They will both require you to sign several forms for us. This is either a dangerous weapon or extremely private individual of a military asset that works in intelligence. Are you claiming that this man is an assassin? I'm claiming he can be an assassin, and if he's required to assassinate entire armies simultaneously, then it may be required. Incidentally, we have several pieces of video evidence that informs me that if Harold wanted to use more powerful weapons, he is fully capable and willing to do so. How bad? He used a gamma radiation bombardment cannon at point-blank range during a friendly duel. Oh, I've passed out and am having a very strange dream. Thank you for your time. I will try to wake up now, Chief Lemire says, and the call disconnects. Admiral Heinala laughs openly at that. Oh, thank goodness, these calls are recorded. He's still lightly chuckling a minute later when Chief Lemire calls back. Scene change. Alice Thanquil and Sean Darkwater, attorney at law. All right, ma'am, now that I'm certain we have our proper privacy, I'm going to lay out your options. They have you pretty banged to rights. Attacking bounty hunters is generally frowned upon, and as the people you fought with are so near, and this is a so near world, I'm afraid that's going to work against you. In an ideal society, such a thing wouldn't matter, but ideal societies are the things of dreams and dreams only. And those options are plea bargain, turning evidence, and good old-fashioned deflection. No matter what, we're going to downplay everything you did, cut whatever deals we can, and get you the minimal sentence possible. But with each one, we need a slightly different approach. However, it doesn't matter what approach we take. I need to know, absolutely everyone, if evidence I'm not familiar with gets introduced to the court in any way, even if it's dismissed, that can hurt us. So please, with full knowledge that I am on your side, and the only thing that will change that is an admission that you intend to commit more crimes, tell me everything. Sean explains and Alice nods. Very well, I am professional mercenary. While I have many private projects and intentions, they are all on hold at the moment while I build funds, so are irrelevant to my current situation. Continue, Sean says. I have numerous differing identities because, as you can understand, a mercenary has a wide array of appeal to different customer bases, and I have 5 additional names in legal identification to my person, so that I can put forward what is essentially the best resume possible for potential employers. And are these identities solely for the purposes of business and presenting yourself as appropriate for your job? They are. My current identity of Alice Thanquil is my between jobs identity. Mercenary work is high stress, high energy, and only a fool refuses to let themselves rest between jobs. Perfectly reasonable. Do you have copies of your many IDs on your person for my notes? Sean asks, and she brings out a wallet and, using a touch of axiom, opens all 6 compartments at once and places the ID cards on the table. Sean takes a picture of them all, flips them all over, and does so again. Thank you very much. Anything else? I need to know which identities you've been using within the legal boundaries of Scathach, Sean tells her. Her response is to take back 2 of the IDs and leave the rest. Okay then, so you are Alice Thanquil, Janet Furness, Elise Geargrind, and Rebecca Crushlin? Correct. Now I need to understand how these IDs all appeal in differing ways. I'll have the remaining IDs of Jade Zenvin and Fiona Lockwad tossed out. Thank you. As you know, Alice is my one ID without a mercenary license, but a rather full bank account, numerous driving licenses, and a bounty hunting license. That one is there in case there is a target of opportunity. Vacation or not, it's wise to be on the lookout for more money-making opportunities. And Janet Furness is? A mercenary and enthusiast of traditional fire arumenta martial arts. As a full-throated patriot to her homeland, and traditions more defensive and conservative contracts are her forte. Elise Geargrind is a technology specialist and is capable of maintaining and using any kind of weapon imaginable. Individuals that like to have big shiny armies or someone manning the big guns hire her out more. Finally, Rebecca Crushlin has a well-earned reputation for never refusing work and has a contract to forget everything about the client afterwards. I see. And which ID were you in while you were upsetting the Wayne family? Rebecca Crushlin. I see. Do you have a copy of the contract you had while working as Rebecca? Oh, before we continue, I need to know if there is a dark reputation around the remaining 2 identities. If they get brought up, I'm going to work to get them thrown out as irrelevant to the case either way, but I need to know just how urgently I need to do that. Jade Zenvin is an assassin for hire, often for government Secret Service branches. She gets burned a lot legally, but makes an extraordinary amount of money. If she gets brought up, I want it thrown out immediately. But if Fiona Lockwood is brought forward, you can ignore that one. I don't think I've so much as jaywalked in my all-rounder training persona. I'll be fighting them both off. But if I have to let one through, it will be Fiona now then. Back to the contract. Do you have a copy of it? This could be something we can walk the entire case on. I do, but it's on my communicator, which is currently in police custody. I'll request it back. Do you recall it enough to summarize it? I was asked to basically follow a specific lava serpent in a small shuttle and shoot it with a very specific weapon, a large but not overly cumbersome handheld railgun. It was a custom job, and I was instructed to throw out the gun and let it fall into the lava afterwards. Not a normal request, but not a legal one, and far from the strangest thing that was ever asked of me. Several government weapon tests I took part in had even weirder ideas. What was custom about the railgun? The weapon had been modified to take a cased round, not a normal thing. I am unfamiliar with weapons. Define a cased round, please. A cased round is where rather than the payload, or bullet or shot, being shaped to move along the rails of the gun, you instead have a case that moves along the rails with the actual payload inside it. This is not normal, as people generally prefer coil guns for launching custom ammunition. But coil guns are less powerful and precise, so I thought little of it. So in summary so far, you were paid to do an unusual but not concerning nor illegal weapons test for a private client? Correct. Very good. Please describe the results of this weapons test and what happened after. How did you get into a position where you ended up fighting the Waynes? I received notice to fire the weapon, did so, and then disposed of it as instructed. The weapon payload, on contact with the lava serpent, caused the entire animal to simply vanish. The swell of Axiom suggested it was a teleportation effect, but with the sheer turbulence in the trench and the natural churning of the planet's own field, quickly erasing things, I wasn't able to actively track it. After that, my contractor told me my payment would be in the agreed-upon location and then blocked my number. It was odd, but I've faced much odder in other contracts. And your aggression with the Wayne family? That starts both. Much earlier, but feeds into now. Summary before details, please? I worked as low security in a place where one of their targets were once. I never forgot how much of a fool their patriarch made me feel. Now I see him a century later, and I assumed there would be no way to leave without a fight, so I did my best to simply escape. Unfortunately, he's rather good at fighting, has a habit of tracking, and provoked me over and over again until I lost all reason. I see. And would Mr. Brutality Wayne recognize you? He has a long memory. Miss Thanquil, are you afraid of the Waynes? No, she says, slamming her fist on the table and making the cards jump. Okay, fine. That is more than fine. But if you were... I am not. I'm just saying it would help me get you out this if you can legitimately claim to being afraid of the Waynes, Sean says, and she pauses, considers. Looks like she bit into something truly sour and then outright gags. But I can see you are a proud woman and are in no hurry to admit to any such thing, even under duress. You think I'm under duress? I think you're looking at quite a bit in the way of potential fines and time to serve. That's duress by some definitions. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 388, Capes and Conundrums. 14 spare clips. Mags, Harold corrects the officer. What? A clip is what keeps them hanging from a belt or its carrying case closed. A repository of ammunition for a weapon is a magazine. Yes, but some societies have advanced beyond the need for petty ammunition and use energy weapons, the officer says in a condescending tone. You do realize that the energy of a laser, electric weapon, or the agitated gases of a plasma weapon are its ammunition. Therefore, the battery packs serve as magazines, right? Harold asks her. Whatever. Just take the 14 damn spare clips for your stupid chemically propelled pistols. All right. I just need to check them over first. We have 4 hollow point, 4 solid slug magazines, 2 tracer, 2 white phosphorus, and 2 non-lethal. All right, that's basic pistol ammunition out of the way. Where's my assault rifle ammo? He asks, and a massive box is slammed on the table. Did you mix my 39 and 45 ammo? Lady, I gave them up in separate groups for a reason. I have a system. What's the difference? Catastrophic system failure is the difference. Then why do you even have the 2 types? Because some of the most reliable rifles in existence use one type, and the more modern gear uses the other. Harold protests as he starts sorting out the two, slipping them into the relevant pockets away from each other and keeping account of both of them at the same time. What are you doing? Counting. Now, no distractions, please. I'm not in a battle-ready state, so I'm a lot more goofy. Goofy, she demands, and he sticks his tongue out at her. Scene change. Brutality. Why on Scathach did you chase the woman down? She attacked out of nowhere and was in a public area. And that was on top of the fact she's connected to a massive terrorist attack in Gotham by being involved in the transportation of a fully developed lava serpent within the city limits. If there wasn't some likely very illegal techniques used on a city defense cannon, then the casualties would have been horrific. Why do you say likely very illegal in reference to the defense cannon? What did it do? Defense ordinances are just as dangerous as offensive ones. However, they have very limited targeting permissions and even more limited firing arcs. This is to keep the weapon defensive even if a great deal of it is compromised. A massive plasma turret that can turn into any direction is a single hack job away from reducing apartment buildings into mass graveyards. So they generally only have a few degrees of actual maneuverability. Using an axiom technique to alter that firing arc, while necessary in a situation like a lava serpent being in the city, is likely quite illegal, and the brave soul who made it happen is likely going through their body weight in data slates to read out and properly sign all the forms required to stay out of prison. We got off track, Mr. Wayne. Please explain in detail why you tracked down and assaulted Miss Thanquil rather than calling in the police and handing over your tracking data. I'm pretty sure it's Thanquil, not Thanquil. I have a slight accent. Stop stalling. Very well then. It's because Miss Thanquil is too much for local police. The laws of engagement you follow means that if showed you even a small amount of the same hostility she showed me, then there would be fatalities. Before we could even speak, she was firing a plasma weapon at me before tactically using the environment to try and crush me alive. I see. And did you do anything to provoke this reaction beforehand? Threats? Demands for surrender? Or were you just in the same building and she preemptively attacked? The exact order of events is that we discovered the vehicle involved in transporting the lava serpent belonged to Miss Thanquil. We found her legal address, and while my children surrounded the building, I went in the front door and took the elevator up to her level. On the way inside, a drone passed overhead, but I brushed it off. While riding up, I heard a click that reminded me a great deal of numerous weapons prepping to fire. So I phased through the bottom of the elevator and rode it up the remaining 2 floors. Miss Thanquil then entered the elevator, drew a plasma weapon, and fired directly at me through the floor. I was able to avoid the attack, but before I could retaliate, she shot the safety locks on the elevator to drop it. I responded with non-lethal force, and she then drew a very specifically modified weapon. Describe the modification. It has numerous nicknames and is not available on the open market, but different gray and black markets will call it confusion casing, gambler's shell, or other similar designations. The purpose of this modification is that it radically alters the profile and tells of the weapon to make it impossible to tell what the payload of the weapon is, which is highly lethal and easily hidden as the shell can be taken off in a hurry. I haven't heard of this before, the officer says, and he shrugs. It's a niche enough item to not be needed. It's generally easier and less expensive to simply have a cheap backup weapon you can switch to. No matter what kind of laws or rules are in place, criminals are guaranteed to have some kind of weapon on at all times, and the market for getting them a backup piece is lucrative. Many lower-level criminals have some serious hustle when it comes to moving weapons. And they can provide this casing? Yes, but they're custom orders every time. Give me maybe an hour and I can find a weapon smuggler in this city. Have you been here before? Not for many years, but there are patterns to look for. Can you describe these patterns? Yes, but I must advise caution. What form of caution? Weapon smugglers are generally non-violent criminals. Furthermore, they're very aware of the danger they're in and causing. So they're cowardly, they're also greedy, meaning that it's better for everyone if you let them know that you know about them, but are willing to look the other way so long as they're willing to talk about anyone you care to name or describe. They'll try and squirm out of it, but keep the pressure on without crushing them or scaring them off, and you'll have a very reliable contact with an enormous number of their own contacts. Is that a fact? Unless you find one going gang lord on you, then it's pretty reliable. And even if one is becoming that kind of ambitious, hitting their dealers and keeping the pressure on them will give you incredible intel to tear down the organizations. Thank you, but I think we know how to keep our city safe. Your little brawl with Thanquil, excuse me, has been the biggest event in our city in over a year. I see, my apologies. But it all boils down to either self-defense or ensuring that a deadly individual cannot cause harm. Someone willing to be part of unleashing a lava serpent into a civilian population, even if by a miracle we don't have any casualties. Yes, it's not someone you just let go. They need to be observed, contained, and more. We went to ensure she wasn't a bomb of some kind and found out she had illegally installed tri-tight paneling inside the warehouse she had gone to. When we entered, she had a trap ready with full intent to keep us locked up. Thankfully, a friend of the family, Harold Jameson of the Undaunted, was nearby and freed us from the unlawful incarceration through detonating the top of the building to allow us to escape. That explains the damage to the building, but what about the ship? That happened immediately afterwards. Thanquil attempted to escape again, but Harold fired upon her cloaked vessel and shot it out of the sky in such a way that the remains were swept into the lava trench below. Yes, that was the powerful weapon that alerted the entire city. There have been injuries because of that. In what way? Several sonar have reportedly slammed into walls or onto landing areas without being able to brace themselves thanks to the sheer concussive force of the shot. Have there been any casualties? No, your friend Harold has already been released, as he had a body cam running the entire time and submitted it for evidence. Our synth officers have gone over it and released him without a fuss. More of a fuss at any rate. Apparently he's driving some of our girls insane as he lists out all his equipment as he stores it away again. And why is that a problem? It's not so much he's doing something like that, so much as he's got so much to go through that it's severely annoying several of our girls. Scene change. Harold. And this one is, honestly, if I hadn't had the entire container sealed, I would not have surrendered it for even a moment. This round induces a black hole at point of impact. Harold explains, holding up the pitch-black caster round that seems to be drinking in the surrounding light rather than merely dark. You have a black hole bullet. Why do you have a black hole bullet? In case something needs to be hit with a black hole. Why else, he asks. Anyways, we have all the caster shells and the caster gun accounted for. Now I will need the larger munitions. The gun itself is destroyed, but the rounds must be brought up and counted. About that, Officer Flowers states as she hefts up the next case. Why are these things custom designed? Because I made these bullets by hand. It's not necessary, but it is a tradition. And I am required to have downtime between all my training sessions. Me and my wife Dumaya enjoy making munitions and weapons together. It's a bonding activity. Your idea of relaxing is making giant anti-ship bullets? Technically, they're anti-megafauna bullets, but they work fairly well on ships, don't they? Harold notes as he pulls out one massive bullet after another. You know these are technically the same caliber as artillery pieces, right? Designed to go up against armored vehicles and hardened positions like bunkers or reinforced buildings. And it's all chemically propelled? Yep, and therefore nothing more than a cultural trapping to a human, because there are gaps, loopholes, and boneheaded assumptions in galactic law so immense that you can fly an entire species through it, which we have. Yeah, but when the round by itself could hurt someone by falling on their toe, I think you're taking it a little far. Maybe, but from the way the law is worded, I could have a bullet bigger than my own person. So long as it's chemically propelled, it's considered cultural dress and nothing more, he says, and Flower's eyes scrunch shut, and she starts rubbing the side of her head. Something wrong? Just my own brain. Bullets as cultural dress? Wow. Not outside a fundraising poster or the like. Harold sasses back and she lets out a sigh. Crazy human. Yep, Harold replies. And he's shameless too. Officer Flowers mutters. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? What do I have to be ashamed about? Harold asks, and she just looks at him. He offers her a big smile in return. Scene change. Winifred and the girls. She turns her arm a bit and feels for the sensation of the armor. It's supposedly quite heavy, without the motorized assistance of the mainframe of it acting to support it all. But it's still well within tolerances. She supposes if she had to just wear this without a framework, she would get tired. After a while at any rate. Are you sure it's not heavy? This kind of armor needs a framework for a reason, Agatha says. Ever since accepting that she needs training to be a warrior, the tests had been done away with to a different kind of test where it was more training focused, and both Dumaya and Agatha were focused on equipment, with Agatha fitting her for the first part of a proper suit of armor. I suppose it is, but it would take a while to wear me down. It doesn't feel like much. You have as much on your single arm as entire non-powered suits weigh, and without the framework, it won't work anywhere near as effectively, Agatha says. Still, we need to know your level of feedback tolerance. Without implants, you won't be able to use a more advanced suit, but with your species routinely shifting in just how bulky you are, we need to focus on upward tolerances. Better to have some room and inflatable padding to brace you than try and squeeze someone much too large in a small suit. Sensible, but it just seems a little quick, isn't it? I may be pregnant, and I doubt you'll be making the armor to accommodate a baby bump, Winifred asks. That's right. However, your overall frame will be unchanged. An adorable fuzzball, or 3 in, you won't make your shoulders broader, your arms longer, or shrink your legs, Agatha says before smiling. Although it is pretty cute that you're already thinking about the babies. Well, there's going to be a fair number fairly soon, right? The gestational time may vary between species, but at most we have a year, Winifred says before placing a hand on her stomach. At most I have a year, and that's if I have a longer gestation period than normal. Geary is going to lay first, but it will take some time for the gestation to finish up. After that, it's a race between her, Javra, and Dumaya. My money is on Javra. Matak have shorter gestational periods, Agatha says. Is it now? But we do have a wild card. Velocity is of a manufactured species, right? A lot of them have incredibly short gestational periods, Winifred notes. True, but she's only barely starting to show. I am? Velocity asks. It's mostly hormonal. You smell different, Agatha says. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 389. Capes and Conundrums. Santiago leans into the room. The search of the city, rescue efforts, and calming of civilians had been the kind of emotionally draining that wears you down. The downside of a good reputation was that people relied upon you and multiple grown women near weeping in fear as the sheer danger of the day was hitting them in ways they were not ready to deal with, as exhausting in ways that only the extreme training back on Earth had been. And that had at least made him feel like he was doing more than barely keeping things above water. Excuse me, I'm going to be going for my snacks in that mini fridge there. I hope you don't mind if I just squeeze through here. He says to the room, numerous alien women, no two of one species, are making a large meal in the break room. Thankfully, none are using his personal tools, likely because they have no idea what they are, and he already has his own already prepped. Oh, of course. You look exhausted, little man. The massive Canador notes, and he nods while wondering if any of them are ever small. Those petty thoughts are the result of the exhaustion, no doubt. Yes, a great many Sonir have lived their whole lives never actually seeing the lava serpents without a massively potent barrier between them. Not everyone is a soldier, warrior, or hunter. A lot of people here are just accountants, cooks, servers, or other simple but necessary things, and they all stared burning death with actual hunger right in the eyes. Few of them are handling it well. Centuries some of the people here have passed millennia without ever coming as close to death as they did earlier. Needless to say, someone known to be patient and helpful gets a lot of people begging for help, even if there is naught they can do to actually help. Santiago explains as he retrieves a few things. Hey, is there any room left over on the stove? I need a little something to energize again. Oh yes, a moment please. The gigantic bear woman says, pulling aside a few dishes to crowd one side. There, 2 burners open, one small, another large. Gracias. Santiago notes as he pulls out the ingredients and ponders for a moment. He'll have his chilaquiles good and crisp. A yawn stretches across his face as he retrieves an egg, his veggies, a texture and taste equivalent to avocado he's found, and his salsa with fried tortilla. Oh? Tatha fruit? That's rare. The Osadub states and Santiago grins. They're pink avocados. Taste and texture is nearly identical. Blindfold a man, and you won't be able to tell the difference, Santiago says genially. And they're not rare. It's just the locals don't use them much for all they grow well in this world. Fair. The fruits so near prefer more sugary fare. The Osadub states, Oh, where are my manners? I am Winifred. Santiago, Ah, you are the newest paramour of Harold, right? Santiago asks. I am. Does gossip travel that fast? It's the only non-axiom entity that does travel faster than light, Santiago says before pausing. No, the ship engines had to have crucial components made with the help of axiom. Therefore, they are axiom entities as well. If you make extra of whatever you're making, I'll let you have the extra I'm making, Winifred offers. I'm not that hungry, but I'll make extra. It's always nice to see people enjoying my food, Santiago says, grabbing a second egg. Thank you. Scene change. Harold. His fingers carve into the obsidian walls as he slides down the side of the trench and towards the few remains of the ship he had blasted out of the sky. No one had wanted to go too close to it, because this is lava serpent territory. Any salvage ship will be potentially attacked by a gigantic snake striking out of the molten stone, and that is not a risk anyone wants to take. Seismic sensors reported a great deal of movement below the lava near here. There were serpents aplenty, and it would be wise to avoid provoking them. Pieces of the ship had been torn off during the blast and fall. Then gigantic jaws had clamped around the largest piece, which had landed on the lava. It had been dragged under and was now completely lost in every sense of the word. But a couple smaller chunks were either embedded in the comparatively fragile obsidian walls or on small ledges. The coolest one was red hot and would be an oven at the best of times. But more information was needed, or at the very least, the damn things needed to be removed before someone with far more balls than brains got it into their head to explore them. He reduces the effect of gravity upon himself and gently pulls himself into a torn, open side of a chunk of ship. The winds start tearing at him, and he pulls himself further to get out of the torrential gusts of volcanic gas and burning air. This part of the ship was atmospherics. There were numerous exposed bits of what was once wiring, melted and dripping down the sides of the burning metal. The thermal readouts are all reading into the danger zone, but there is a strange wind that is rapidly heating up and needs to be heated up because it seems to be starting at almost tolerable levels. Granted, you can still cook an egg on metal at that temperature, but it's not the level of heat where you start leaving footprints in iron plate. He has to give himself back his gravitational weight, and the entire structure groans and shifts ever so slightly. He pauses for a moment and listens for the telltale cracking that will herald this ship snapping free from the glass wall and falling below. There is nothing, so he moves forward. The mechanisms at the heart of the cold wind are screaming with axiom, automatically pulling in more and more and more as the atmospherics try to cool down a ship in the process of melting to slag. The floor gets more and more solid as he moves forward until he stands upon solid metal again. There is a creaking and crackling sound where the superheated metal is meeting the cooled metal as it constantly fights between expansion and retraction. He doesn't have long. The dozens, if not hundreds of microfractures per second the war between hot and cold is dealing out will shear away entire sections of the ship in short order. Mist is pouring out of the next room, and what he sees genuinely impresses him. The atmospheric pump is working so hard that a patina of ice is spreading over the floor as it attempts to cool an entire world. A losing battle, but not one that's being simply surrendered. The console next to it has been kept alive by the sheer stubborn resilience of the engineering. If nothing else, Harold wants the brand name and knowledge of whatever modifications have been made to this machine. Scale it up and you could bring an ice age on a whim. It requests a password. That is odd. Generally, systems like this are kept open by many. You want to be able to access these computers immediately if things were going wrong. Then a countdown begins and he curses. He rips off the protective paneling next to the computer and finds several charges that he tears out, followed by grabbing the hard drive and storing it safely. The countdown ends and the charges go off regardless, even as the cooling unit stops entirely. The room fills with fog, but only for a moment as the war between hot and cold has its decisive winner. And there is a great groaning and crackling noise as half the chunk suddenly rips away and cracks part of the wall under the remaining piece. It starts to slowly sink through the breaking glass wall, and Harold moves to hurl himself across the trench and embeds his fingers into the other side. He turns back and sees the chunk fall away with a shower of obsidian surrounding it, falling faster than the tiny shards of glass blown about by volcanic forces. A beautiful display that if a man got too close to would tear him to pieces and cook him through. The first half of the chunk lands far below, and the lava thrashes as the apocalyptic monsters below react to the disturbance of their home. Blazing hot coils slam into each other, and two snakes in the process of trying to kill each other rise out of the lava and smash into a chunk of stone sticking out of the wall and break it off entirely. A wall of glass falls down after them as the thin layer of obsidian over the stone falls away. The second half is outright ignored as it slams and shatters against the blazing hot coils as two gigantic monsters are dead set on killing each other. The wall provides a place for one to pin its opponent and get a fatal bite on the other before dragging down its corpse into the depths. There is an enormous crash as another chunk of the ship falls, but this one onto a chunk of stone. He calculates the distance, considers, forces the issue, and then is on the platform and rises up from his near-crouching position that hanging onto a wall basically does. This chunk was part of the engines, and a quick walk around tells him it's got nothing in the way of usable components. Everything has been damaged badly by the fire. The insulation around it had caught flame due to sheer heat, and if he had been able to get here in the first couple of hours, he might have gotten something usable out of this. But as it was, nothing. Pity. He notes as he considers what to do with the situation before using the inbuilt communicators in his armor to tag this wreck in the local data networks as useless for anything other than base metals, as well as mark it as in the danger zones, under direct threat and in an unstable area. Any one of those markers will ward off all but the stupid. All of them together will mean that the only people heading in this direction are outright asking for a Darwin Award. The last major chunk was a wing component with both weapons and armor on it, but it was so close to the lava it was starting to droop, and in just a few more hours will be pouring into it. If there was anything of value there, it lost its value a long while ago. He activates the recall feature on his armor, and reality fades out before it fades back in. He's in a small contained room that's very well ventilated. A system test is run on the still blazing hot equipment he's in, and then scans him before noticeably pinging off both his Axiom brand and the similar effects on his belt buckle. The armor opens along the back, and he climbs out, feeling the Axiom thrum along him as it keeps the hellish heat off his person. He slips out of the room and puts in a few notes on the armor, namely pointing out the salvage he retrieved, and the computer confirms before beginning to monitor the sheer heat of the gear and slowly letting it cool so thermal shock doesn't just crack it open. Technically, none of these precautions were actually needed. Axiom let a lot of this slide, but no one wanted to be in position for when a slight hiccup of Null suddenly turns the thermal armor chamber into a cremation oven. "Oh, good timing," Javra says, and he turns with a smile. "Hey, pretty lady, what am I in time for?" he asks. "Come on, this way," Javra says, zipping behind him and pushing him along. "But I need to make some mission reports," he argues for the sake of arguing. "Later." She cheers as she half guides, half carries him through the mobile base. He's pushed into a room full of gossip, and then he finds Winifred helping several of his girls with cooking numerous dishes. And remember, the trick and treat are in the fats. They're what makes the meat tender and juicy. It also helps with cooking. Winifred trails off as she spots him and smiles. "So?" he asks her, and Yavra chuckles as she picks him up. "I've done some thinking. And you may be physically small, but there's so much there that it's worth it to at least try. And trying is never enough on its own. So I'm in, she says. I'm willing to be a warrior because sometimes life won't let you be anything but. And besides, if I'm already pregnant, then I want my cubs to have a father. And if you're not, we can correct that, Harold says with a grin. You read my mind, Winifred says, and they kiss. Then there's a sound of distress, and they break it off before Winifred rushes in to save a dish that Uma isn't quite ready to cook. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 390, Capes and Conundrums. It's okay. Calm down. You're okay, he assures the Sunir girl. He wasn't entirely sure how he had ended up as the cuddle bear to panicking Sunir girls. Okay, yes he does logically know how. It's one thing to know that a hellish monster exists. It's another to see it make a beeline for your home and die close enough the residual heat from the abomination is making the outer districts uncomfortably warm. It's not only super dead, but it's being taken apart as we speak. The pieces of it that aren't kept as trophies are instead melted down and beaten into more useful shapes. Double super dead, it's gone. But nothing it... Pavel begins to explain, before suddenly there is a sensation and people start staggering, even as he feels more exhausted than he had been in a long time. Skipping breaks and going without water isn't a smart thing, even with Axiom there to give you wiggle room. What? Why is there... There is a gagging, weeping sound followed by the gut-wrenching hacks of someone trying to keep themselves alive as everything fails. Pavel outright picks up the girl and runs towards it, depositing her on a bench and keeps going. Hang on, help is on the way. He calls over, feeling his feet less pound into the concrete below and more grab to pull him forward. A proper sprint that has him soaring before he comes to the corner and uses it to both slam the brakes and swing himself around it at once. Oh, God, Pavel says as he beholds the Gravia woman twisting, contorting, and shifting all at random as her body starts to break down entirely. Some 20 paces beyond her is an empty outfit fallen to the ground. He picks her up and goes back the other way, as far from the Null detonation as possible, and towards where the Axiom is still consistent and capable of holding her together. A hand that is composed entirely of binary code grabs him around the back of the neck as she tries to stabilize herself and just stay alive. Her face has ultra-realistic eyes and a drawn-on flat panel that contorts between expressions of physical and emotional agony. He reaches the outside of it, and her form pulls itself back together. She floats out of his grip, and the Axiom is pulled into her and reshapes into a healthier, stronger state. I only heard you. Where there others? Pavel asks her, and the look she gives him, while comparatively low resolution, is pure horror. They were closer. They dissolved before you arrived, she says in a haunted tone. We had no warning. There was just a pull. Too much of a pull, and it went too far too fast, and everything went wrong. Was it organic? Technological? It was panicked. It felt like someone got scared and did too much, and people died. She was pregnant, the Gravia says in a broken tone. What? She was We'd induced a copy and adapt protocol. We were going to be mothers. The Gravia says, and Pavel's mouth goes dry. He was out of his element when he was just comforting the Sonir teen, a freshly widowed Gravia, who watched her lesbian wife and unborn child decompile into nothingness, is so far out of his depth he has no idea what to do. Only thing he can do is call in help. All right, I'm getting backup. I'm glad I was able to save you, but I'm not qualified or equipped to keep helping. I'm getting people who are, Pavel says, bringing out his communicator. Command, we just had a Null event in the city. Gravia civilians in the area. We need medics, we need troops, and we need counselors because we already have fatalities. Are there any at your location? I have a freshly widowed Gravia civilian with me. She just watched her wife and unborn child dissolve in front of her. I'm not equipped to do more than keep her alive. I need backup, now. Reinforcements are en route now, soldier. Command states, and he nods. A ragged tear in the air opens wide before smoothing out into a proper portal, and several men rush out, including one with a medic's band. The portal remains open even as the medic checks over the wounded Grevia. Pavel has been taking the time to start pulling out the pieces of his rifle and assembles it. What are we looking at? I was comforting a civilian when the Null detonated, and I heard cries of extreme distress. I followed it to find the Gravia here, in empty clothing. My matrix, the Gravia says in despair. Pavel kneels down to her level and puts a hand on her shoulder. He looks her in the eyes and gives her a nod. Doctor, can you see to her? He asks, not breaking eye contact with the woman as the interaction keeps her here, right here where she needs to fully heal if she is to live. I've got her, the counselor says as he crouches down as well and makes sure the equation woman turns to him. All right then, Pavel says. Everyone follow me. We're going to bring some order out of this. Scene change. The Waynes. What the hell do you mean a Null event? The city was calming down. Why would it? Who would? It doesn't matter. How bad are things? Nightwing's demands in a horrified tone. Oh, that's bad. Yeah, okay. Yes, I understand. Thank you for telling me. The call ends and Nightwing stares at it as if the communicator is about to bite him. I do not appreciate the suspense, brother, Hoffet states, and Nightwing turns to him. Details, please. Travel to Gotham is restricted by mandate for 12 hours following a Null effect within its limits. It's a necessary safety precaution to keep casualties low and prevent people from getting in the way of emergency services. Any risk to the shields like what's happened and... Was it a terrorist attack? Connected to the lava serpent? Hoffet asks. We don't know, but there have already been casualties. Gravier were close to the epicenter of the event. The Undaunted have a badly injured widow in their care now. She was not a widow prior to the event. Nightwing states grimly. Do we know what caused it? How many casualties, or is the investigation still underway? Brutality asks. Still underway. There is some good news, though. Drac? This is your field. We have a copy of a hard drive from Alice's ship that Harold shot down. He went and retrieved it for us, and he's hoping you can open it nice and wide while he helps out in Gotham. Excellent. I hate sitting around with my wings folded up. Ace signs that his wings are folded up while he uses computers as well. Well, yes, but you know what I mean, Drax says as he holds out his custom data slate. Bring the file up, please. He holds out his tool and the communicator is tapped against it. All right, let's see what we're working with. It's looking for, we need to get some false positives on the hardware it wants, and it wants bombs? Someone's paranoid, and it's a miracle it didn't go off if it had damn plasma charges on it. Are you sure it wants explosives? Those files came out of an atmospherics control computer. Weird, anyways. 6 fake bombs, fake vent, fake engine, fake central communication pylon? What? Track asks as his digits dance over HTE touchscreen. That's just weird, and a password? What kind of axiom-depleted idiot puts a password on atmospherics? You need to get access to this thing in a heartbeat. Basic safety protocol. Bad form. And the bombs weren't a hint that Alice is crazy? What about her going berserk as she screamed death and doom at us? Todd asks. Fair, Drax says as he starts going through different sequential bits of data and forcing the program to reset time and again until... There we go. I'm in. The hell? Already? There are way too many gases and gas concentrations and temperature variances in this. The list should be maybe 5 or 6 items long. There are tens, maybe even hundreds of combinations. Most ships will have it 2 or 3 basic configurations. One for standard, one warmer, one cooler, to be applied as the ship-going residents prefer. Atmospherics controls more than just the air, after all. It's the temperature and humidity levels, and this just doesn't make sense. Short of trying to poison yourself, I can't see any reason to have this many different combinations of gases, thicknesses, and humidity levels, Drac explains. Can I see a few of them? This is reminding me of something. Brutality states and is handed over the slate. He glances over them and nods. It's a training methodology for thermal techniques. Keep a fire at a very specific level, brightness and strength, even while the atmosphere around you shifts all over the place. I've never seen this before, Drax says, taking it back. It's for consistency and control rather than precision and power. Most focus only on how small or large you can make a fire, not how it can be maintained despite sudden and unexpected changes. If you can see a series of spikes in oxygen levels, then you know it's a very intense control workout. There are a few, but I don't know. There's something in here. What do you suspect? The pattern shifts. Look here and here. Sudden, dramatic shifts. The atmosphere stabilizes for a while, and then goes back to its insane cycling. It doesn't just stabilize, that's the optimum atmospheric composition for a fruit sonar. Brutality notes and Drac double-checks it. It is. Perfect matchup to the homeworld jungles. So she was meeting with either a fruit sonar or someone who just so happened to like that composition, and they were respected enough that she would alter her ship's air supply in order to accommodate them, which is not normal. People rarely go that far above and beyond without a good deal of money or pride on the line, and some need both before they're that accommodating, Todd says as he thinks. Do we have dates on those changes? If we can pin down where her ship was when this was happening, we can likely find out who she was talking to. Excuse me? Who do you think you're talking to? Drac asks. My smart-ass little brother? Todd replies, and Drac pauses and think. Fair. Scene change. Pavel and the team. Over here, there's another one. He calls over the medic to come over and check the collapsed sonar. Whatever and whoever had initiated the Null event, they were likely among the victims. Unless someone fessed up, it would be a long and irritating investigation. But first was to deal with all the crash sonar who had suddenly found themselves using wings too small to actually fly and unable to properly decipher their echolocation. Despite the lava serpent causing more fear, the Null had caused far more harm. The medic takes her pulse and gently feels around the woman's head. Then gently, very gently, feels along her neck, and she gasps in pain. Possible spinal fracture. Not good. The medic mutters. All right, I'm going to brace you here and mark you down for retrieval, ma'am. I need to hear it from you. Are you choking anywhere? Are there strange twinges anywhere? My membrane. All right, I'm putting that down. You're likely getting into a healing coma after this. I hope you don't have any issues with that. None, she says. Good, which means this'll be nothing more than a bad memory in just a short time, Pavel says as he looks around. Miss, you're right near where the Null event kicked off. Do you have any idea what happened? A scream, scared. No. She tries to say past the sensation of things being held down. Sniper Zmog, how good are you at drawing axiom? Decent. Pull it in and let me guide it. We need more from you, ma'am, so we're going to take a bit of a risk. With your permission, of course. Risk. Accelerate your healing. Spines are tricky, though. This will stabilize you. But it might make you need a healing coma even more if something goes wrong. Do you consent? S. I need to hear it as clear as possible. Do you consent? Yes. She answers, and he places his hands on the sides of her neck and nods to Pavel, who puts his hands over the medic's. He starts channeling axiom as best he can, and the medic molds it as cleanly as he can. There is the sound of something grinding, crinkling, crackling, and then the sonar woman suddenly lurches and takes a deep breath. She sits up and breathes as clearly as she can. Oh, thank the goddess! I could barely breathe like that, she says. Ma'am? Follow my finger, please. The medic says, holding up his right index finger and watching her eyes as he moves it up and down, side to side and in a few circles. Okay, I suggest you get a checkup as soon as possible, but it looks like we're in the clear. Good, ma'am. I need to hear everything you know about the Null event. People have died, and we need to know what happened. Is this a tragic accident or an ongoing attack left over from the madwoman who brought the serpent into the city limits? Pavel asks her. She blinks and her ears stand up and angle his way as she thinks. I think someone had a panic attack, she says and starts to move to rise. Pavel rises first and helps her up. Where did you hear it? He asks her. Over there. She points the way and he nods. Thank you. Who died? There were Gravia nearby. I was only able to save one of them. Oh no.